The studio lights burned hot above Stephen Colbert's stage, bouncing off polished tiles and the sharp edge of his grin. The crowd was roaring, not chuckling, not smirking, roaring. And there it was, a joke so sharp it didn't just slice it punctured. "I mean, how can you take a man seriously?" Colbert said, pacing the stage like a preacher in a suit when he speaks like your drunk uncle at Thanksgiving dinner while trying to sell you a fake diploma. The audience erupted. The camera cut to a woman in the second row, eyes tearing up, clutching her sides from laughing so hard. A man beside her wiped his glasses, shaking his head. I still remember watching that clip for the first time. I don't know about you, but it didn't feel like comedy. It felt like a public stoning with punchlines. Colbert's jab wasn't new, it wasn't even original. But that night it landed harder than usual. Because this time it wasn't just a dig at policy or behavior. It was personal. "Ladies and gentlemen," Colbert continued, voice dripping with mock sympathy, "let's all send our thoughts and prayers to the White House clown car. Poor thing, it's down to just one driver now." They laughed, they applauded, but behind one of those studio walls on a quiet monitor in a darkened room, someone else was watching. He didn't flinch, didn't frown, didn't say a word. Donald Trump simply stared. Now love him or loathe him. Here's the thing I can't shake, that moment felt wrong. Not just because it was a cheap shot, but because the laughter wasn't aimed at a man, it was aimed at the millions who still believed in him, who felt like maybe, just maybe, someone like them had finally made it to the top. The next morning, the internet was on fire. Every news outlet ran the clip. Twitter trended with hashtags like #ClownPresident and #ColbertHoundsTrump. Even late-night competitors jumped in. Jimmy Kimmel took a swipe. Trevor Noah added fuel. John Oliver re-aired the clip with slow-motion replay, and his own monologue layered on top. You'd think they were mocking a tyrant. But to me it looked more like they were mocking a man who had chosen silence. And in our world today, silence, it's blood in the water. Because the game wasn't just about disagreeing anymore. It was about humiliation, public, cruel, final. But here's the twist no one expected. Trump didn't tweet. He didn't call into Fox News. He didn't host a rally. He didn't even send out a press release. He just waited. And I'll tell you something, that's when I leaned forward, because that wasn't the Trump the media sold us. That wasn't the caricature. That was a man playing a longer game. He could have thrown a punch. He didn't. He could have thrown mud. He didn't. Honestly. That silence, it rattled me more than anything he could have said, because in a world addicted to outrage, restraint feels like rebellion. What happens when the man you mock refuses to mock you back? What happens when the punchline doesn't land because the person you're trying to hurt isn't laughing but isn't broken either? I'm not here to defend Donald Trump. That's not what this story is about. But if you think this was just another late-night joke, think again. Because what came next didn't make headlines. It didn't trend on social media. It didn't come with studio applause or celebrity endorsements. It came in silence, in steel. And in one moment, on a completely different stage, he answered Colbert. Not with a punchline, but with something much heavier. And if you stay with me for the next few minutes, I promise you this. You'll see a man get mocked on national television, and then turn that humiliation into something the crowd never saw coming. It's easy to forget how lonely power can be. One moment you're standing behind a podium, cameras flashing your words, shaking the stock market. The next you're a silent clip passed around for cheap laughs in dorm rooms and cocktail parties. That week, the joke didn't fade. It spread like wildfire across TV, TikTok, Twitter, everywhere. Not just the original jab, but the reactions to it. Remixes, memes, late-night reaction channels breaking it down like it was a historic speech. And through it all, Trump said nothing. He walked past reporters on the White House lawn, ignored jabs from the press. He hosted meetings, visited a school, even stopped by a veterans shelter in Manhattan. But no one reported that. They only played Colbert's joke. Over and over and over. He became the punchline. And let me tell you something that changes a man. Not in the way you might think. Not with rage or revenge. But with a pause. A breath, a tightening in the chest that tells you, this is what they really think of you. One night, Trump was spotted leaving a low-profile charity dinner in NYC. No entourage. No press. just one aide walking quietly behind him. A journalist who happened to be there caught a blurry photo Trump standing still outside the venue, coat folded over his arm tie, loosened just slightly. He wasn't posing. He looked tired, and not end of the day tired. The kind of tired you feel when you realize that no matter what you do, the world has already decided what box you fit in. Back at the White House, the mood was tense. Staffers walked on eggshells, unsure of what version of the president would walk through the door. But what they got wasn't anger. It was silence. No explosive tweets. No rallies. No late-night rants on Truth Social. Just a quiet man sitting with a folder full of veteran assistance reports, reading every page, highlighting names, underlining dates. A secretary later said she peeked in to ask about a scheduling change. He didn't even look up. Just said, "Tell them to add more shelters in Jersey. Those guys are still waiting." While the media poked fun, he was busy calling a local construction firm offering to fund beds for a new veteran transition center with his own money. But no cameras were rolling for that. No headlines praised it, because it didn't fit the story. And that's what crushed me more than the mockery. It was the erasure. The deliberate choice to frame someone as a fool, even when the actions told a different story. He was being publicly laughed at by comedians who'd never served, never built, never handed a folded flag to a grieving parent. And he was quiet. That's not the Trump most people know. Or the one you've seen on stage, slinging nicknames and firing off insults like cannonballs. But here's what I've learned when a man who usually yells goes quiet. Really quiet, something's shifted. It reminded me of something my father once told me after losing his job. "You find out who you are," he said, "not when you're winning, but when you're humiliated." That week, Donald Trump was humiliated. And every instinct in him probably screamed fight back fire, off strike harder. But he didn't. He sat. He watched. He remembered. And somewhere in a room with no microphones, he began planning what no one saw coming. Now, I'm not saying that made him a hero. But I'll say this. There's a